Macron, and this is part of the controversy, he's a brain box. He's a very intelligent person who actually has learned a hell of a lot about epidemiology, to the extent that his aides insist that he has become an epidemiologist, and therefore he doesn't feel that he needs to necessarily heed the scientific advice. It seems obvious that he thinks doctors will be doctors. They will always want to shut everything down. He's got to juggle that with keeping, for example, schools that have remained open until now and other parts of the economy going. But then along came le variant anglais, the English variant that he calls an epidemic within the epidemic. And that just blasted those measures and made them look completely insufficient. And that's why we've seen the new change.
Nous devons, pour les mois à venir, fournir chacun un effort supplémentaire. C'est cela ce que je nous demande collectivement ce soir.
This COVID crisis could make or break Emmanuel Macron's political future. There is only a year until the next presidential election, and it's extremely unclear what will happen then. But if he doesn't play his cards right with this COVID crisis, it's going to be very hard for him to get even through the first round. So these are dangerous times. Well, Emmanuel Macron has until now avoided doing a hard lockdown that we've seen in other countries. Since January, he's refused to take tougher restrictions nationwide. Now, what happened on Wednesday night was that Macron decided to make those measures national. The problem is doctors, particularly in the hotspots, have been screaming that we are heading for a wall of occupancy of intensive care units. They say that mathematically, mechanically, we will reach those high figures just because Macron refused to do something tougher earlier. The opposition is saying, look, you've been calling all the shots and making all the decisions, and now you want us to just kind of rubber stamp what is a kind of monarchic decision. Well, no, we don't want to do that. You take responsibility for what they call a health disaster. Lots of opposition saying that it's been totally illogical, his way of proceeding. And the other thing, of course, is that Macron didn't really mention the vaccine issue. The problem is France was extremely slow out of the starting blocks on vaccines. Macron said some dodgy things about AstraZeneca that have come back to haunt him because nobody wants to take AstraZeneca and they happen to have more of that than other vaccines. But just to give you an example, the town hall of Paris has sent out mobile teams literally to try and take people off the streets and say, do you want a jab? I went to a centre this morning and said, can I have one? Unfortunately, I'm under 55. And as you know, in France, they banned AstraZeneca for the under 55s. And the woman said to me, I can't give you one. I wish I could, because a lot of people I offer it to say no. We're between a rock and a hard place in France. You know, there's a lot of skepticism over the vaccines. It's been too slow, and the government wasn't sufficiently positive about it in the first place, and is now paying the price. There is some good news for Macron. And first of all, despite this opposition boycott, the new restrictions were approved by Parliament, where Mr Macron's LREM party has a majority. And also, in another boost, a Harris poll that was taken just after his address did find the majority of French were convinced by his speech, and an even larger majority actually approved of the measures, in particular his pledge to ramp up vaccinations and also to push people to home work. So it's not over yet.